The Baltic officials' report includes a section on how the Russian Foreign Intelligence Agency, the FSB, targets people using human, cyber and signals intelligence. According to the assessment, the FSB Signals Intelligence Unit, similar to the National Security Agency in the United States, is called the 16th Center. That unit sweeps up communications worldwide, from radio, satellite, telephone, mobile, or data link communications. The Congressional phone books, purchased from U.S. Leadership Connect and a local periodical provider, are an example of how Russia uses open-source intelligence to amass as much information as possible on possible U.S. targets for surveillance or potential recruitment. The Russians have always taken advantage of the relative openness of societies in the West, said Robert Dannenberg, a former CIA officer who at one point served as chief of the Central Eurasian Division. The Russians use it mostly for targeting purposes but also to fill holes in collection, he continued. And in the 2016 U.S. presidential elections, the open-source data allowed Russians to target specific audiences for active measures, said Dannenberg. The Russians' use of the federal and congressional directories are reminiscent of the Moonlight Maze operation, according to Thomas Ridd, a professor of strategic studies at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. Moonlight Maze was one of the earliest computer intrusions into U.S. institutions, and first reported by Newsweek in 1999. One of the early targeting methods, said Ridd in an interview, was to use a directory from the State Department. There's a long track record of Soviet intelligence using publicly available records, but not easily available, for espionage and active measures, he continued. It's an old joke in intelligence history circles that the best reports that Soviet spies would write would copy reports from the New York Times and the Washington Post. According to Ridd, who is currently working on a book on the history of disinformation, it's possible that Russia is in a better position to integrate open-source intelligence with the other data the services gather. The U.S. is historically not very good at this, he said. I think it's remarkable that they missed the 2016 leak operation. Tracking how the FSB obtains directories and other open-source information is made even more difficult since different parts of the Russian intelligence services, like its military, often go by a string of numbers, according to the report. For example, the part of the FSB that buys the manuals is Military Unit 71330. It is impossible to identify the military or intelligence unit in any given instance without factual knowledge, says the report. Open source isn't the only way Russian services are gathering data. When it comes to digital intelligence, Russian security services are continuing cyber operations aggressively, according to the Estonian report. One aspect the services are adopting even more heavily, according to the assessment, is taking advantage of the work of cyber criminals and patriotic hackers, though the government doesn't have total control over these people, and supporting them has sometimes backfired, when hackers tackle Russian domestic issues. Local cyber criminals are also causing problems for Russia itself, according to the report, including being arrested while traveling. These skills will likely be on display during the upcoming European parliamentary elections in May 2019, according to the Estonians, where Russia will continue to undermine the EU's unity by sowing disorder and disbelief, likely focusing on the larger member nations who stand to gain the largest number of seats where far-right parties are more inclined to support the Kremlin, including in Germany, France, and Italy. Given the rise of far-right movements in Europe, said Ridd, there's increased opportunities to recruit